leave away, spit on my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the
If
yard.
you say the same thing in an entirely different text, I will smack you upside the head. I get that the gospel's the same week after week, but wow.
Been knocked down,
That's,
called God a liar.
Okay, hey, welcome back to Talking Shop. We are all together once again, the whole crew, Tim and Ernie, Matt, and myself and Paul. And we have a text from Luke chapter 13, 22 to 30. Is that right?
yes.
Yeah. And Ernie, we need you to start us off. Because the last time you started, I mean, it wasn't bad stuff. It just
You started lead off
kind of
deeper and
fast.
You were out of practice, I think.
That's
You were
right.
just out of practice.
No, I still might be.
He's got some rhythm back. He's got some rhythm.
Well,
we find
we
it.
got to
Here
work
go.
on that then.
Well,
Yeah.
let's just do this. Jesus walking around, heading around, and
Thank you.
then he
We get
is
a question?
approached with a question. And what's the question? And why does it matter? And what do you feel about it? And what's your favorite ice cream?
Favorite ice cream? Oh, that would be chocolate malted crunch from 50s.
Oh,
Also mint chip.
And what is the airspeed of an African
Dude,
swallow?
never buy ice cream other than that.
Solid.
Or Tillamook ice cream. I'm really digging that.
All right. Too far. Bring back.
Distracted.
So what does he ask? What does he want to know?
This is your brain on Ernie. Anyways,
This is your brain.
sorry, welcome back.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, again, about Lord, will those who are saved be few? And I think we see right here Jesus going through the words of the narrow door and how, I think when we talk about narrow door and what they were to go through, it's not, I think last week we talked about the peace and the sword and what that was all about in a sense of the reality of Jesus coming to this world to do what he came to do. And here we see the narrow door, just the same. It's not, in a sense, it's easy because Christ is our way, right? Jesus says what? I am the door, right? But here we see that narrow door, that it's not a free-for-all, but it's Jesus the only way as the door. So it's
Right.
But he doesn't answer that question. Does it ever get frustrating to you? Like, somebody will ask him a question, and he doesn't answer the question. Like, what's up with that?
He does answer the question, Tim.
doesn't answer the-
Yes, he does. He answers the question.
The answer is yes. It'll be few.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, maybe, but he doesn't actually say that, does he?
No, but
No,
you
it's
got to
right.
know that the real concern of this guy is, am I among the 144,000?
He's
wait,
trying
did
to
I just say
justify
that?
himself. Oh, get out of here with that. Get out. The door's over there.
But no, that's actually the real question though is
Yeah.
am I
Speaking of
included?
Am I in?
Yeah, that's what he
Am I
wants.
in?
That's what I meant.
That's where Ernie was getting eventually, and so that's
See,
what
there's
he
a quicker
wants
way
to
to
know.
say that, Ernie.
And so I think to your point, you're right. He doesn't just come right out and answer the question because he's getting at the real motive driving this. Is he wants to know if he's part of it, and how then, Matt, does he do that? How does he get to the heart? What does he start to unpack for him?
Well, he starts to talk about what are you putting your trust in, right? What are you assuming will be your qualifications for getting into this door?
Okay.
And so you get this whole statement of them once the master closes the door, right? Them standing out there, and I think there's part of it is if you're actually attuned, you would know when the master's closing the door.
Okay. Yeah.
But now they're standing outside and they're giving all the qualifications for why they should be in.
Yeah.
Because we hung out with you.
We hung out with you. We
Yeah.
taught in your streets. I mean, you should know us. And I think the master's answer is, you should have known when the door was shut.
That's right.
And you didn't.
Right. You knew what curfew was.
That's right.
Yeah, you should have followed
knew
me,
the
right? You should have
rules.
been
Right.
with me,
You
not
should have
just,
been with
not
me.
just around
Right.
me.
Yeah. And so anyway, yeah, they want to put the qualifications in themselves.
Okay.
And the master says the qualifications aren't your qualifications aren't what gets you in the door.
So much so that he calls
It's-
them doers of evil
Yeah.
and wickedness, right?
Yeah.
It's my generosity, my movement that gets you in the door.
Right.
So
Right. So, man, that's actually a good way to take it. I mean, if your list of qualifications, whatever you think it is, that's going to gain you access to the door, if whatever that is isn't Jesus,
Isn't
you're
the
not
door,
getting
right?
in the
Yeah.
door. You know, like
isn't a conversation with the master, Lord, when's the door closing?
Yeah.
Lord, where should I be when the door closes?
right,
Lord.
right.
Or maybe it's just stay on his
That's
wing
right.
and
I'm with you, right? I'm with you.
Yeah,
Are we going
right here.
inside now?
Where we going?
Okay, we're going.
where we going? Where do you want me to go? Come right here.
Yeah, which kind of picking up what Ernie said from our last week's text, if you preach that one, this, I mean, it clearly falls on the heels of that as well. That you know, his way's not. This isn't going to be peace with this world. Then, so it's not like you can stay outside your own thing, have peace with this world, and then at the end the door is closed. You're like, wait, no, I was with you right the whole time. That there is a point at which that door is shut.
Yeah.
Maybe is a.
And you might assume that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are in because of their works, right? But, I mean, obviously the writer of Hebrews, Paul would have
Yeah.
something to say about that in Romans.
Right, yeah.
That it's about their connection with the master. They knew. They understood his motives, his meanings. They were with him.
Right.
And that's
Which
why they
that
find
text
themselves
is a part
inside.
of this section of preaching,
Yeah.
right? Hebrews 11,
Right.
by faith, by faith,
Right.
by faith.
Yeah.
Right, and so this is sort of reminiscent of the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, right? Where he can see across, right? And it's sort of that same thing. Like you can see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets of the kingdom of God, right? And you're cast out, right?
out.
So it's kind of like, you're outside the door, but maybe it's got like a big window
Looking
or
in,
something.
yeah,
You're
that's
like,
right.
oh my goodness, I can't hear it. Look at that.
Which actually makes it that much worse.
Makes
right?
it worse, yeah.
It's like when you're at the Krispy Kreme, you look at they got the fresh hot now, but you can't get in, right?
And what you end up seeing is all these far off
it's
people.
exactly-
Not exactly, okay.
And what you end up seeing is all these far off people whom you never knew, whom you never had any interaction with, who aren't like you,
From east and west, and north and
reclining at
south,
that
yeah.
table. Why? Because they knew the master.
I knew, you're right.
They had a relationship with the master, and so actually I think Jesus doesn't answer the question because it's not a question of few or many. It's not a question of less or more. In fact, Jesus would desire that it would be everybody. But the answer is however many know the master. That's the answer to the question.
Okay, and so is this statement at the end, is this statement then about the world or is it about heaven?
Which
In
to
30?
clarify that for our...
First, last, first. That last sentence. What do you think? That's not rhetorical.
I need an answer.
Tim's actually searching for an answer on this.
So again, say it again. Say your question.
So is that about earth or heaven or both? Or the crossover, right?
This is the Beatitudes, right? Blessed are the poor, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek, right? So this is those who appear to be of a lesser status in this world will be greater.
And so how do we interpret that? Last here, first there, first here, last there.
Yeah, good
yeah,
point.
I think it's my hunch would be it's getting to the this it isn't going to be the way you
think it's
you
going to be.
think it's going to be. It's not going to be your eyeball test of your values. Again, maybe kind of going back a little bit again to last week with the, you think that this is all about me coming to bring peace, right? And that's not the way it's going to go. There's going to be judgment. There's a door that will close. All those kind of things, and the commonality is Christ, and it's not your works or your value, your status, right? And so that I think it's kind of that. It's like things can get flipped totally upside down, and this is the way the kingdom works. And so you may have done wonderful things in this world, without Christ, you're on the outside where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, and not in.
And that's like the narrow door in a sense of the eschatoi and the protoi, the first and the last, and the last in which are first, right? So it's a reminder to all of us that the cross is, again, a scandal to many people because it's the outside of yourself work. And that the last are the ones that know that it's only Christ. The first think, that sounds good, but
The Pharisee
I
and,
can do more.
and the tax collector, right?
I can do my best, and I think it's Jesus always at the end, right?
Yeah.
Jesus, the narrow door, the one that people would spit upon and scoff, and there he would rise the third day. So
I think part of the answer to your question, Tim, comes in the verbs themselves. It's the SN is are, present, and then it's the esontai, which is future. So the ones who are last will be first.
Right.
Those who are first will be last. So there's a future reality to it. But
upside down kingdom stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
right, definitely.
Sure.
So, you guys want to throw out some ideas there? How much you preach this? It's rich. There's a lot there. For my 2 cents, I think maybe that upside down kingdom kind of talk is not a bad way to go. Kind of running it backwards in that regard. But what do you think, Matt? What do you got?
I kind of like getting at the heart of the question. Sometimes we ask questions, and the questions that we ask aren't really the questions that we want to know.
That's good. Yeah.
And so again, Jesus kind of getting to the heart of that and saying, what you really want to know is this, and I'm going to answer that, even though it doesn't answer your question and it's not going to appear to. I'm going to tell you what you really want to know, and you might not like that answer either.
That's good. Yeah.
But it's the answer that you need to know in order to fully understand what's going on. So Jesus changes the question because that's the question that needs to be answered. As one of our professors often said in first year at the seminary, he would say, you've got questions, we know that, but you're going to learn while you're here that the questions that you have aren't the real questions. And you're going to leave here with even more questions that you didn't even know you had when you got here. Yeah. And I think that's a relationship with Jesus. He doesn't tell you how to have a relationship with the Master. He doesn't actually tell you how to get in the door.
Right.
He simply says, strive to do it. And so there's more relationship. There's more questions that have to be asked. There's more connections that have to be made in order to understand this Jesus. And it ultimately will lead you to him crucified on a cross, which you never thought it would.
Which is going to look like the least, right?
Yeah.
humiliation.
Yeah.
Ernie?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Ditto.
Perfect.
I think just the narrow door and just that simple gospel, Jesus against all other ways to be with God. This is the only way, and I think it really piggybacks on last week's. But that only way is understanding that we are, bringing out that spiritual problem of sin and death and the power of the devil, and knowing that I don't know how many people will think that they can reach God rather than God reaching down for us. And I think that's always the battle with humanity, and it's to really hone in on that gospel, knowing that sadly and honestly we are, tragically, ever since we were born, we are the last, but yet we are the first in the body and blood of Jesus. So
Christ, yeah, good.
Yep.
Tim, anything to add there?
As I look at it, I'm just trying to figure out. I like the idea of going to the question, right? Lord, will those who are saved be few? And I actually kind of like it that Jesus doesn't answer the question, right? He does what he pulls the Jesus move, and he goes.
He's allowed.
He's good.
Yeah, he's allowed to do that. He's about the only one, right? And he goes out of the direction, and it's just this idea. I don't know how you preach that exactly yet, but it's that idea that I know you've been asked, well, is my dad going to be in heaven? Do you think my husband went to heaven? And I think it kind of cuts to the heart of that question for all of us. And how do you preach that in a sensitive way to those folks who are literally sitting out in front of you asking that question? You know, you got to be very careful with that.
Yeah.
But the idea is, you know, Christ is the only way, and it looks like last things being first and first things being last, and all your priorities being upside down, and everything you thought the way it should be is actually not the way it should be. It's actually His way. It's a narrow door versus a wide path, and all that. And so, kind of that idea that I mean, I think you could start with that question, start with that query or that paradigm, and then expand it from there, and then come back, of course, to this idea that Christ is actually the one who seemed to be last but became the first. And He did it so that you could be the first with Him and recline at table, so that sort of thing.
Right, good. Well, hopefully that's helpful. Check out craftofpreaching.com. Like, subscribe, hit that little bell button, and you'll get the updates when the videos come out. And leave us a comment if you have ideas on preaching this text as well. We can start that conversation there. And God bless your preaching. See you next week.